We are proud to support this process with a total amount of €4 million. I have also the honor of chairing the Committee on Constitutional Affairs within the RJMEC, where the international community comes together to accompany the process. The constitution-making process is of historic significance for South Sudan. It is immensely important for the future of this country and the successful transition towards a democratic, stable and peaceful South Sudan. The South Sudanese people have not yet had the opportunity to pronounce themselves on the basic rules and values under which they cooperate and would like to be governed. The constitution-making process is elemental to constructing a social contract between the citizens and those who are entrusted with their leadership and governance. Beyond being a legal text, the new constitution should be a founding document for South Sudan. And the constitution-making process should therefore be a process of creating a common state for all ethnicities and societal groups with a common identity where all voices are heard. I call on the government of South Sudan to provide guidance to the process. The key question asked by UN, the AU and IGAD more than a year ago still remain unanswered. And one of those pertains, for example, to the role of the Constitution, particularly in relation to the planned elections. How can we expect the NCRC to fulfill its mandate when the political framework within which it should operate is not known? I also urge the government to show commitment and ownership to the process by providing adequate financial means to prepare a constitution that the South Sudanese population can call their own. The 2018 peace agreement and the roadmap are very clear that the permanent constitution should, and I quote, initiate a federal and democratic system of government that reflects the character of South Sudan in its various institutions, guarantees good governance, constitutionalism, rule of law, human rights, gender equality, and affirmative action. End of quote. This indeed is a remarkable commitment. Initiating a federal system is very complex and very diverse. You will have lots of opportunities during the workshop to hear and discuss the various forms of federalism. These choices are for the South Sudanese to make in order to design a model that suits this country, South Sudan. It is not to be ignored that federalism also has a fiscal dimension. The federal element and the federated entities need to be able to accumulate revenue and dispose of their proper financial means to contribute to and to implement decisions at the federal level, as well as to exercise their own competencies. In the long run, administrative structures need to be financially viable and sustainable. Transparency in the use of resources is key, and we all know that this element in South Sudan, unfortunately, is lacking. Within the EU, the key purpose of federalism is to promote public participation in decision-making and to ensure that decisions are taken as close as possible to the citizen. Article 10 of the EU Treaty stipulates that, and I quote, every citizen shall have the right to participate in the democratic life of the Union. Decisions shall be taken as openly, as closely as possible to the citizen. End of quote. This is known as the principle of proximity. While EU member states know different models of federalism, the EU itself has enshrined the principles of subsidiarity and proportionality which govern the exercise of the EU's competences. Thereby, the Union can intervene only in areas where the objectives of an action can be better achieved at Union level by reason of the scale and effects of the proposed action. Honorable Dr. Rian, honorable members of the NCRC, you have a truly historic role to charter the way ahead and draft a founding document for the South Sudan to be subject to public consultations amongst the people of South Sudan. And the document will replace the transitional constitution that has guided the country since 2011. The progress on the implementation of the South Sudan peace agreement has been frustratingly slow. The stakeholders owe it to each other, but especially to the people of South Sudan, to show political will and accelerate the process. For the way ahead, important political decisions need to be taken now. on the constitution, but also on the electoral process, security arrangements, and on transitional justice, amongst others. On transitional justice, I would echo the words of my dear colleague, Professor Biswaro, that we welcome the progress recently achieved in the TNLA in the form of 2 important bills on reconciliation and compensation being passed. The next step, of course, and the proof of the pudding, is to start with their implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union will remain a partner of South Sudan in the historic endeavor of bringing the transition in South Sudan to a close.